Have you ever wondered why the definition of high blood pressure keeps changing every few years? I've been a doctor for over 35 years and I've seen it happen again and again. What was once considered normal when I was a medical student is now labeled dangerous. And strangely, every time that definition changes, millions of healthy people suddenly become patients overnight. I still remember, back in the 1970s, we only started treatment when a patient's blood pressure was around 160 over 95. Then in the 1990s, that threshold dropped to 140 over 90. And now, even 121 over 81 can put you in the high-risk category. Now, I'm not saying modern medicine hasn't advanced. It absolutely has. And many scientific discoveries have saved countless lives. But I can't ignore a troubling pattern. Every time the definition of a disease changes, the number of prescriptions, doctor visits, and medical costs all seem to skyrocket. One of my patients, William, 67, is a perfect example. He came into my office looking worried. "Doctor," he said, "I just checked my blood pressure at the pharmacy. It was 128 over 84. The pharmacist told me I might have pre-hypertension. Should I start taking medication?" So I asked, "When did you measure it?" "Right after climbing a few flights of stairs," he said. I chuckled softly. "Well, that explains it. Anyone's blood pressure would go up after that." What most people don't realize is that blood pressure isn't a fixed number. It changes from hour to hour, minute to minute, because of a cup of coffee, a restless night, or even the stress of waiting in a doctor's office. We call it white coat syndrome, that moment when just seeing a doctor makes your heart beat a little faster, and the machine never tells the whole truth. But what worries me most isn't the number itself. It's how the healthcare system has turned that number into a destiny. One wrong reading, one new standard, and suddenly a perfectly healthy person spends the rest of their life believing they're sick. I've seen many people start taking blood pressure medication long before they truly needed it. At first, it's just one small pill in the morning. Then months later, two pills. Then pills for the heart, for water retention, for sleep, for anxiety. And slowly, they lose touch with how their body actually feels. I once had an elderly patient say to me, "Doctor, I don't know if I'm living because of these pills or if the pills are living because of me." That sentence stayed with me for a long time. I'm not denying that medication can save lives. It certainly can, and I've prescribed thousands of pills in my career. But what I want to remind people is this. We've lost sight of what treatment truly means. Treatment isn't about lowering a number as much as possible. It's about helping a person restore their natural balance. Have you ever felt tired, dizzy, or lightheaded after taking your blood pressure meds? Most people brush it off as a minor side effect, but often it's your body saying you've gone too low, especially for older adults. A slightly higher blood pressure can actually be your body's way of keeping blood flowing properly to your brain and kidneys. Force it down too far, and you might lose the very stability you're trying to protect. Think of it this way. You're driving down a long road. Your blood pressure is like the speed of your car. If you drive too fast, it's dangerous. But if you drive too slow, that's dangerous too. What you really need isn't the lowest speed. It's the right speed for you. That's something modern medicine often forgets, that every body tells a different story. There's no single, perfect number that fits everyone. And no pill can ever replace a good night's sleep, a healthy meal, or a morning walk in the sun. I often tell my patients, before you let someone label you as sick, ask yourself, do I feel sick? Because sometimes you're not ill. You're just scared by the numbers. I'm not saying you should ignore your doctor's advice, but let me share a little secret from decades in this profession. There's no magic in the pill. The magic is in your daily habits. Eating less salt, sleeping more, worrying less, and trusting your body's natural ability to heal. Because in the end, blood pressure isn't a sentence. It's a signal. And when you learn to listen to your body, you'll realize the goal isn't to lower the number, but to raise the quality of your life. I want to tell you about another one of my patients, Margaret, a 72-year-old woman. She was always careful, always followed every instruction her doctors gave. She recorded her blood pressure every day, took her medication on time, and never missed a follow-up appointment. One day she came to see me looking tired. "Doctor," she said softly, "I feel dizzy every time I stand up. Sometimes it feels like the room is spinning." When I measured her blood pressure, it was 105/65. She smiled weakly and said, "But my other doctor told me, the lower the better." I thought I was doing great. I placed my hand on her shoulder and said gently, "No, Margaret. Sometimes in medicine, lower doesn't mean better. You see, blood pressure is how your body keeps every cell alive. As we age, our arteries stiffen and lose elasticity. So the body compensates. It raises the pressure slightly to make sure blood still reaches the brain, the heart, the kidneys. When we push that pressure too low with medication, we're actually taking away that natural protection. I've seen many people like Margaret. Their blood pressure drops too low, they get dizzy, lose balance, fall, sometimes break a hip, and after that, everything changes. One fall at 70 can become the turning point of an entire life. A large study in the US found that among people over 65, those with too low blood pressure, below 115/70, actually had a higher risk of death than those whose pressure was a bit higher, around 130/80. That number made a lot of doctors, including myself, stop and think. We're supposed to be treating people, not numbers on a machine. And maybe the scariest part isn't the side effects of the medicine, it's the dependence it creates. So many patients tell me, "Doctor, I'm afraid to skip a dose. If I forget my pill one day, I get anxious. My heart races, I understand that fear. But I also feel sad because somewhere along the way, they stop trusting their own bodies." I'm not saying we should throw away our medications. Of course not. Medicine has its place, especially in emergencies. But what I want you to remember is this: pills are tools, not lifelong crutches. Now I want you to imagine this. Your body is like a garden. If you water it just right, the plants thrive. If you water too little, they wither. But if you water too much, the roots drown. Blood pressure works the same way. It needs to be balanced, not out of fear, but out of understanding. I've helped many patients break free from the endless cycle of medication through small but consistent lifestyle changes. One man, 69 years old, once labeled as having chronic hypertension, began walking 30 minutes a day, eating less salt, and going to bed earlier. After 6 months, his blood pressure dropped naturally, from 145 to 125. No medication, no pressure, just a return to the body's natural rhythm. I remember one morning he told me at the clinic, "Doctor, I can't believe walking alone could make such a difference." I smiled and said, "You're not just walking, you're giving your heart a reason to slow down." Have you ever noticed that your blood pressure rises when you're stressed? That's not a disease. That's a survival response. So when you learn to breathe deeply, to relax, to meditate, or simply sit in silence, your body learns how to find its balance again. Blood pressure isn't just a measure of heart health. It's a mirror of your lifestyle, your emotions, your spirit. If your life is filled with anxiety, your pressure will rise. But if you slow down, care for yourself, and live with more kindness, that number will ease too, like a gentle breath. I often tell my patients, let medication be your last resort, not your first choice. Before increasing your dose, try increasing your walking time. Before taking another pill, try cutting back on salt. Before worrying about a number, ask your body what it's trying to tell you. And you know what? Sometimes it only takes one small change to make a big difference. A breakfast with less sugar, an evening spent outside instead of in front of the TV, a quiet night's sleep without your phone by your side. All of those things are medicine. They just don't come with a label or a prescription. So if you're listening to me right now, I want you to remember this. Blood pressure isn't a sentence. It's a reminder. A reminder that it's time to care for yourself. Not through fear, but through understanding. And when you learn to slow down, eat better, rest more, and love your body a little more each day, your blood pressure will find its way home, like a river returning to its calm, natural flow. I used to believe that modern medicine was a perfect system. that if we just followed every guideline, we would all be healthier and live longer. But the longer I've practiced medicine, the more I've come to realize a difficult truth. We live in a healthcare system that knows how to treat disease, but not how to keep people healthy. I want you to imagine this. Every time the definition of what's normal gets lowered, whether it's blood pressure, cholesterol, or blood sugar, millions of healthy people suddenly become patients in need of treatment, not because they're any weaker, but because the definition of health itself has changed. I still remember a professional meeting at the hospital a few years ago. A young colleague presented a new proposal. If we apply the new standard, he said, about 30 million more Americans will now be classified as having pre-hypertension. The room broke into applause. I sat there quietly looking around and thought to myself, why are we celebrating the idea of having more patients? That question has stayed with me ever since. I know there are countless dedicated doctors and healthcare professionals who truly want to help people. But I also know that the system we work in has become a massive economic machine, one that needs patients to keep running. Every checkup, every prescription, every lab test, they all generate money. And when you keep lowering the definition of normal, you expand the marketplace of illness. A Harvard study once found that in the past 20 years, half of all Americans over 40 take at least 3 medications every day. And that number is still growing. I'm not saying all of that is wrong, but I do wonder how much of it is truly necessary. How many people are taking pills out of fear, not out of genuine need? One of my patients, James, 58, once told me, "Doctor, I feel healthy, but every time I go for a checkup, I come home with a new bottle of pills." I looked at him and simply said, maybe it's time to trust your body more than the numbers on the paper. The human body is a remarkable creation, designed to balance itself, heal itself, and adapt. But our healthcare system has taught us the opposite, that we can't survive without pills, without instructions, without constant medical supervision. And in that process, many people have lost the most sacred connection of all, the trust in themselves. I don't blame medicine. I don't blame doctors or hospitals. The real issue is that we've let fear guide us instead of understanding. Fear of stroke, fear of heart attack, fear of death. And when people are afraid, they'll do anything, even take pills for life, just to buy the illusion of safety. But true safety doesn't come from a pill. It comes from the way we live each day. I once asked an elderly patient, if every morning you took a 20-minute walk, ate a healthy breakfast, and slept well every night, how many pills do you think you'd need? He smiled and said quietly, "Probably none, doctor." "It's just hard to keep up with that routine," I smiled back. Exactly, because pills are easier, but easier doesn't always mean better. We live in an age where people can measure everything: blood pressure, heart rate, sleep, calories. Yet we've forgotten how to feel ourselves. We trust machines more than our own breath, our sleep, or our sense of peace. And when those numbers shift a little, we panic. Whether by accident or design, the healthcare system has made many healthy people believe they're sick. But I believe we can change that. Instead of asking, what pill should I take to lower my blood pressure? Try asking, what in my life is making my blood pressure rise? Is it chronic stress, lack of sleep, financial worries, or unspoken emotions with someone you love? Because sometimes blood pressure doesn't rise because your heart is weak. It rises because your heart is carrying too much. If we start seeing health through a wider lens, not just as a number, but as the full picture of our lives, then medicine will no longer just be about treatment. It will become a journey of understanding and reconnecting with ourselves. I believe the true mission of a doctor is not to prescribe more medication, but to help people re-script their lives. Because when life returns to balance, the body follows naturally. So if you're watching this right now, I want you to remember one simple truth. You are not a patient. You are a person learning to understand your own body. You don't need to fear the numbers. You just need to listen to what they're trying to tell you. Because health doesn't begin in a doctor's office. It begins right where you are, in the way you eat, breathe, love, and live every single day. I want you to think about this for a moment. Every morning, millions of people across America sit down, strap on a blood pressure monitor, look at the screen and start to worry. Just 5 points higher than yesterday, and their heart begins to race. They ask themselves, what's wrong with me? Is my medication not working anymore? Am I getting worse? And just like that, an entire morning turns into a cycle of anxiety, all because of two small numbers on a digital device. I once had a patient named Margaret, 67 years old, very careful about her health. She recorded her blood pressure every single day, morning, noon, and night. One evening around 9 p.m., she called me, her voice trembling. Doctor, my monitor just read 145 over 88. Should I go to the emergency room? I gently asked, do you have a headache? Dizziness? Chest pain? She said no. Then please, do this for me, I told her. Put the monitor down, sit still, take 3 deep breaths. And remember this, a number is not a sentence. It's just a message. I paused for a moment, then continued. Blood pressure isn't always stable. It changes with your emotions, the weather, your meals, even a stressful phone call. I told her a simple truth that many people forget. If you just climbed the stairs, drank coffee, or felt anxious, your blood pressure will temporarily rise. That doesn't mean you're getting sicker. It simply means you're alive. She chuckled softly. Maybe I need to learn how to live with the numbers instead of fearing them. I smiled and said, exactly. You can't control every number, but you can control how you respond to them. After years in medicine, I've realized something. Many people don't die from illness. They die from the fear of illness. They measure too often, worry too much, and live under constant tension. That tension itself raises blood pressure, speeds up the heart, disrupts sleep, and the vicious cycle begins. I often tell my patients, check your blood pressure, but don't let it check your peace of mind. You see, blood pressure isn't just the result of your heart, it's the reflection of your entire life. Your sleep, your meals, your movement, your emotions, your mindset. Once you understand that, you'll realize medication is only a small part of the journey to health. Medicine helps you through a crisis, but lifestyle helps you stay well in the long run. I remember a colleague once joked, Doctor, you know what's easier than prescribing advice? Prescribing pills. I laughed, but deep down I felt a quiet sadness, because it was true. It's easy to tell someone to take another pill. It's much harder to tell them to change how they live, to eat less salt, to go to bed earlier, to walk every day, because that takes patience, trust, and commitment. And people don't usually like the things that force them to slow down or change. But here's the thing. Sometimes the smallest changes create the biggest miracles. One of my patients, Richard, had been taking blood pressure medication for 15 years. One day, he decided to make a few changes. He started walking for 30 minutes every morning, eating more vegetables, skipping his afternoon coffee, and turning off the TV an hour before bed. 3 months later, his blood pressure was so stable that his cardiologist reduced his dosage. He told me, Doctor, I can't believe how good it feels to finally have control over my own health. I smiled and said, for the first time, you were in control of the numbers, not the other way around. You see, health isn't the absence of disease, it's the ability to understand and take charge of yourself. So if today your blood pressure is a little higher, don't be afraid. Ask yourself, what's stressing me today? Did I drink enough water, sleep enough hours, or take a moment just for myself? Sometimes the answer to that 150 over 90 isn't found in a medicine cabinet. It's found in the way you live your life. I want you to remember this. No machine knows you better than you know yourself. No number perfectly defines your health, and no pill can replace a calm mind, a deep sleep, or a peaceful walk under the afternoon sun. Check your blood pressure, but don't forget to check the peace inside your heart, because when your heart is at peace, those numbers will eventually find peace too. When you reach your 60s, your body begins to speak to you in a different language. It no longer whispers gently the way it did when you were 30. It starts sending clearer messages. Sometimes it's fatigue, sometimes it's an irregular heartbeat. Sometimes it's just that quiet feeling. Something doesn't feel the same anymore. I've seen many people become afraid when they notice this. But you know what? Your body is never your enemy. It's simply trying to have a conversation with you in a language you may have never truly listened to. High blood pressure is not a villain. It's a message. It's your body saying, hey, you've been stressed for too long. Or sometimes, you've been moving too fast, too much coffee, too little rest. If you learn how to listen, you'll realize your body is the kindest teacher you'll ever have. It doesn't need complex formulas or scientific jargon. It just needs your genuine attention. A few years ago, I met a patient named Helen. She was in her 70s, a former literature teacher, wise and thoughtful. She said to me, "Doctor, I hate numbers. Every time I look at my blood pressure monitor, I feel small, defeated." I looked at her and said, "Helen, if you once taught your students that a poem isn't just words on a page, but the feelings behind them, then blood pressure is the same. It's not just a number. It's your body's way of saying it needs a little love." She laughed. From that day on, she began to check her blood pressure differently, not to control it, but to understand it. When the numbers were a little high, she didn't panic anymore. She'd go for a walk, breathe slowly, make a cup of tea, and turn on her favorite music. And strangely enough, those numbers began to calm down, just like her soul. After many years in medicine, I've come to one truth I always tell my patients. Health is not the silence of the body, it's the dialogue between you and it. You can't force your heart to slow down, but you can comfort it with a peaceful mind and a healthy lifestyle. You can't stop time from passing, but you can live each day with gratitude, knowing that every heartbeat, every breath is a gift. I know that at this age, many of us carry wounds, not just physical, but emotional ones. Loss, loneliness, financial worries, concern for children, medications. But I want you to believe this. You can still heal, not through more pills, but through living more slowly and more truthfully. Science has already proven what I believed for years. A nourishing meal, a deep night's sleep, a warm hug, or a few quiet minutes in the early morning. All of these can lower blood pressure, steady your heartbeat, and calm your nervous system. These simple things, no pharmaceutical company can sell them, yet they are the most powerful medicine we have. I often tell my patients, we don't live just to avoid disease. We live to understand our bodies, to cherish them, and to love them enough to take care of them. Think about the day you bought your first car. You took such good care of it, changing the oil, washing it, getting it serviced. Your body, the vehicle that has carried you for more than 60 years, doesn't it deserve the same care? You can't replace your heart like a spare part, but you can treat it with gratitude. Through every step you take, every meal you enjoy, every night you rest, every peaceful moment you allow yourself. When I was younger, I thought health was the doctor's responsibility. But after 35 years in medicine, I've learned that health is your responsibility. Doctors walk with you for a short distance, but you are the one who journeys with your body for a lifetime. And if you're listening to me right now, perhaps it's time to become your own doctor again. Not through degrees or titles, but through awareness, through trust that your body still knows how to heal, if only you give it the chance. Blood pressure is just a number, but the way you live, that's the real story. Eat a little slower, laugh a little more, walk a little farther, worry a little less. Let your heart beat not just to keep you alive, but to help you truly feel alive. If you've made it this far, I want to say thank you. Thank you for choosing to understand instead of fear. Because every person like you, every soul who learns to listen to their body, is part of a quiet but powerful change in modern medicine. And if today you feel a little calmer, a little more connected to yourself, then this message has done what I hoped for. Not to make you a patient, but to help you become a friend to your own body. Check your blood pressure, but don't let it measure your joy. I'm a doctor, and I wish you a peaceful heart.